Poštovani gledatelji, dobar vam dan i dobrodošli u našu novu emisiju Diplomacija. Kao što samo ime govori, glavna tema ove emisije je upravo diplomacija i njezina važnost u odnosu između dviju i više naravno zemalja i u promidžbi Hrvatske u svijetu te u svijetu vanjske politike. Kroz serijal ove emisije ugostit ćemo veleposlanike Hrvatske u svijetu, ali i strane veleposlanike ovdje u Hrvatskoj. Moj današnji cijenjeni gost je upravo veleposlanik Kraljevine Nizozemske ovdje u Hrvatskoj, njegova ekscelencija, gospodin Henk Voskamp. Hello, it's nice to meet you and it's a privilege to have you here.
Thank you. But first of all, let me apologize for not speaking Croatian.
It's okay.
We can have a conversation in English, French, German, Spanish, Italian, or even Dutch, but I regret that I have not mastered the Croatian language, so I apologize.
It's okay, you will, and that's amazing. You speak 5 different languages, 5, 6, am I counting? Okay, well, you'll speak Croatian in no time, it's not that hard. Okay, so as I have said to our viewers in the introduction, the main topic of this show is diplomacy and the importance of diplomacy in this world of foreign political affairs. So Croatia and the Netherlands have been in good diplomatic relations for 30 years. I think it's this year.
Yes, we are this year celebrating 30 years of bilateral diplomatic relations.
Okay, so at the beginning of our conversation, how would you characterize our relationship of our nations?
Well, Croatia and the Netherlands are partners in the European Union, partners in NATO, members of the Council of Europe, members of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. In short, we share many values and also many perspectives on foreign policy, which makes the work of a bilateral ambassador easier because you share so much with your counterparts in this country. And secondly, and that goes in particular for the Netherlands, Croatia is a very favored holiday destination, in particular Istria. So if I speak with Dutch colleagues, they all say, Croatia. That's sun, sea, holidays, so there's a very positive connotation to the country of Croatia. And that is also, of course, making the work of a diplomat easier because you know that there is this positive feeling in the Netherlands.
And how did you celebrate those 30 years? I've read that you participated in the project Ties and Tulip Stories. What is that about?
No, we decided to celebrate the 30 years of relationship in 2 specific ways. One way is the storytelling. We are making an inventory of both Dutch and Croatian people who have some specific experience with the other country. And we are in the process of publishing these on our website to highlight the variety of bilateral relations on a people-to-people level, which is, I think, for the public more interesting than what governments discuss with each other. And the second thing is we have decided to plant trees all over Croatia as a sort of symbolic contribution to the awareness of the importance of sustainability, the awareness of climate change, and that we all need to act on those matters. Climate change for the Netherlands is of existential importance because more than half of our people live below sea level. So there is a strong awareness, and we notice that this awareness is growing also in Croatia, so we want to contribute to that awareness by symbolically, in various places in the country, planting trees, either myself or my deputy or somebody else from the embassy. So that will take place in the coming months because it starts to be tree planting season right now.
I agree. And just for our viewers, a quick note, you have this funny and catchy phrase about this planting, posadi drvo, ne budi panj. They will know what that means. Okay. Okay, so you mentioned the stories about ties and tulips, and what do you hear from those stories? What are the differences and similarities between our two nations in terms of culture and people, if you will?
Well, we have different historical experiences, and that has an impact on mentality and how people think and reflect. And there's the issue of geography. The Netherlands is in a completely different geographical situation. We are in between Germany, France, and England, and historically that has had an impact on our experiences. Croatia has its own historical experiences and its own geography, of course. One of the reasons why Dutch tourists like to come to Croatia.
We are proud of them, yes, thank you.
And of course, as I mentioned at the beginning, there are similarities because we share many values, especially in the area of foreign policy and security. If you look at lifestyle, I would say that the Dutch appreciate the more easygoing way of life in this country. You can call it Mediterranean, but at least it is positively appreciated in the Netherlands. Like with all other countries in the European Union, we are a union in diversity, and we respect each other's different cultures and experiences on the basis of having joint values, and that makes it possible for the European Union to function. And in the specific case of Croatia, it is the attractiveness of the country that is very appealing to the Dutch public.
Nice to hear.
And the other way around is also a good news story in the sense that many young Croats choose to go to universities in the Netherlands, work for a while there, live for a while there, and maybe come back to Croatia, but have an experience of the Netherlands. And that's why we thought of this concept of storytelling, to have various people who have experiences with the other country to tell their own story, which is not an official story of an ambassador or of a government, but these are normal, ordinary people who are sharing their experiences with the public through our website, and quite diverse experiences, but very interesting and sometimes amusing.
I bet. I'm glad you mentioned work. What would you say about this work and business climate in the Netherlands and here? So for somebody who wants to start a job or start working or start their own company, what would you say? Is it similar or?
Well, you would have to ask entrepreneurs. And if you would ask Croatian entrepreneurs about the business climate here, they will probably be critical about bureaucracy, the length of judicial procedures, bankruptcy procedures, etc. But if you would ask a Dutch company in the Netherlands, they would probably have the same complaints. But if you compare them, I must say that the business climate in the Netherlands is easier in the sense that doing business is easier, starting a company is easier because there is fewer bureaucracy. Then if I look at Dutch companies who come to Croatia, what they are looking for? They are looking for a qualified workforce, and Croatia has that, from maritime engineering to modern IT sectors. And the the motivation, so the commitment of especially young people to work for a foreign company is strong. And I'm basing this on my talks with Dutch businessmen who have invested here. And they are, without exception, happy with the workforce they find here, both in terms of motivation and in terms of the quality of, in particular, the technical education. The fact that many young Croats choose for Dutch universities through the EU programs like Erasmus, which is a great instrument for the support for international mobility within the EU, is also interesting because apparently we, the Netherlands, have something to offer that is of interest for students from your country.
Of course. And how do we stand about investment projects and innovations? Do we have this kind of collaboration?
There are many companies who have their legal seat in the Netherlands. International companies, companies from Croatia as well. So you can see that in the statistics, the Netherlands is a substantial investor in Croatia. If I look at the companies that are here, we have the big ones, of course, like Heineken, whatever, Philips Medical Systems. But I would say it is more interesting to look at the small and medium-sized enterprises to see what they are looking for. And they are looking for niches, so to speak, where they can be successful. And that is where we encounter people who tell us why they are happy to be in Croatia. And if we look at the trade figures, they are good. But we are exporting more goods to Croatia than Croatia is exporting to the Netherlands. And that has various reasons. I mean, if I visit Istria, I find excellent olive oil and excellent wines. I find excellent wines everywhere, but the production is often small. So you have to look in the Netherlands. You have to search on websites to find the shops where you can buy Croatian products. They're there, but you have to look for them.
Okay, but you have to find them.
I would say the climate for doing business in Croatia for us depends on this factor of the human capital, the quality and the mentality of people who want to work for a Dutch company here in Croatia.
I understand. I've read your resume, of course, and I've seen that you were in different countries. You speak, as you said, many different languages, and now you came to Croatia. What is your personal experience of this country? What would you say? Do we have a thing to improve or something?
Well, first of all, we have a system where you have to apply for a new job at the end of your tenure, and I put Zagreb as #1 on my list, and I'm very happy that I got it.
Yeah, that was my question, actually. Why did you choose Croatia?
I chose Croatia for some professional reasons, because Croatia, being both an EU and NATO member and having a history, so to speak, on the Western Balkans, is an intellectually interesting place to be. Also for private reasons, and that has to do with health and healthcare. I'm susceptible to air pollution, so I do not apply for Beijing or for Moscow. In Zagreb, it is, for me at least, quite manageable. Healthcare, I find up to standards. So no problem there. And there's the practical advantage of being fairly close to the Netherlands. There are regular flights, Croatian Airlines, KLM. In the summer also other Dutch companies that fly to Split or Dubrovnik. So the infrastructural connections are very good. And it is an attractive country to be.
Thank you very much. And what would you say about your relationship with our Minister of Foreign Affairs? Is that okay?
Yes, well, I've known Mr. Grilic-Radman from Berlin because I was deputy head of mission in Berlin when he was ambassador there. So we sometimes exchange words in German.
Okay, I can do that, sorry.
No, the relations with the authorities in this country are very friendly and courteous and open. We know about each other's positions, we know where we agree, we know where we maybe do not agree or not yet agree. But the most important thing is, of course, that you can have an open dialogue with your counterparts. And that could be the foreign minister, it could also be the interior minister, or in the area of economics, energy, climate. Well, regrettably, we have a lot of things to discuss.
Yes, regrettably, okay. But I think also that this kind of relationship between the authorities, as you said, is really important.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we have, of course, a practice that is common in diplomatic relations, that I have my direct line to the Croatian ambassador in The Hague. So if there is something that needs to be discussed and that might be sensitive, I give her a phone call, or she approaches me, and we, so to speak, coordinate our work. I here in Zagreb and she in The Hague.
And what does she say? I mean, she will be our next guest, but is she satisfied with the Netherlands? Do you have that kind of information?
Well, I would say that in modern diplomacy, everything, or almost everything, is quite transparent and in the open. There might be differences in political cultures in countries, like, for instance, in our country, Parliament has a very strong position in controlling our government, which means that our government really has to listen, so to speak, to the views of the members of Parliament. In many other countries, that is not, or less, the case. And that is something that you have to get used to when you are representing your country. You have to adapt to the political culture in the country where you're working. And that sometimes requires sort of change of mind, you know, how is political culture working in a certain country? And it can be even quite different in a neighboring country. I worked in Germany, and they have a different political culture than the Netherlands. So that is something that is part of your profession. You have to get, so to speak, the feeling of how to operate in a certain country.
And what was the hardest part to adjust here in Croatia for you? Was there any hard part?
No, I wouldn't say so. Croatia is part of our shared culture, despite the fact that my language courses stopped also because of Corona. I can easily get around. In Istria I can speak Italian, and here in shops in Zagreb I can speak English, and with elderly people German. So it was quite easy to adapt here. And I must admit that I have been involved in a position in my ministry dealing with this part of the world. I have dealt several times with topics of European integration. In 2008, when Kosovo became independent, I became the first Dutch ambassador to Kosovo, so I know of the complexities of this part of the world, and that helps in adapting you quickly to do your work professionally. And what is also a very pleasant experience here is that both with your colleague diplomats, especially of course European Union diplomats, and with civil servants and politicians from this country, you can have quite open relations. We do not have secrets, I would say.
That's good to hear. We are near the end of the show, and in the end, I would like your final thought on the importance of diplomacy. And what do you think is it important to have these kind of shows to familiarize viewers with this topic?
Well, in the 19th century, there was a French writer who said about diplomats, nobody knows exactly what they do, but apparently it's very important. One of our tasks all over the world as a Dutch diplomatic service is to be active in the area of public diplomacy, to not only engage with the authorities of the country where you're posted, but to address the public in a broader sense, to explain what you're doing, because there is, as I said, not a lot secret about what we do. And this is one of my main tasks here. Every once in a while I give guest lectures at universities, here in Zagreb, but I was also in Split, for instance. And we try to be as open and transparent as we can be towards the general public. There are many developments in the world that have reminded us that diplomacy, speaking with each other, remains essential. But in this specific case of the relations between Croatia and the Netherlands, given the quality of our bilateral relations and given the fact that we are EU and NATO partners, it is very easy to maintain and invest in these bilateral relations, and it is always a pleasure, in particular when meeting young people, when discussing with university students, or I was in Požega once where I visited a gymnasium, and that was very interesting to hear their views and their questions and to engage in discussion, and that's what I like.
About this job, yes? Okay, so at the very end, maybe we can conclude this conversation with your answer to the question, okay, so what is your job exactly?
Well, officially my job is to represent the interests of the Netherlands and of Dutch companies and Dutch citizens in Croatia. And Dutch citizens is easily explained. Dutch tourists lose their passports or even drive to Croatia without taking a passport. Representing the interests of Dutch companies is also easily explained. We do, as an embassy, a sort of troubleshooting. We try to help Dutch companies, especially the smaller and medium-sized companies, if they encounter difficulties. And on a more political level, it is my task to convey to my government in The Hague the prevailing feeling and thoughts of politicians in this country, so that we better understand the positions that Croatia takes bilaterally or in the European Union in Brussels or in NATO. So it is, for me, important to convey this prevailing feeling of the political parties and of the government to my own government, and the other way around. That's what I'm for. If I get questions, why is the Netherlands being so difficult on this or that, then I have to explain the political reality in my country.
Okay, thank you so much for this inspiring conversation. It was really a privilege to have you here.
A pleasure on my side. Thank you.
Evo, poštovani gledatelji, došli smo do kraja današnjeg izdanja emisije Diplomacija. Do sljedeće emisije lijep pozdrav i ostanite uz program televizije Jadran.